Because it's the big news. Proof that even in light of this latest controversial indictment, Republican voters are still rallying to former President Trump's defense. A new CBS News YouGov poll asking voters who are likely to vote in the Republican primary what concerned them more about the indictment, whether it was politically motivated or that the documents in question were a national security risk. No surprise, 76% say they're more concerned this indictment is politically motivated. Only 12% were more concerned about the documents themselves. Niall Stanage is here, White House columnist for The Hill. Always good to see you. Hi, Niall. Happy Monday.
Happy Monday to you too, Adrienne. How are you?
You know, I can't complain. I'm wide awake. Again, it's not surprising. His biggest opponents also saying that former President Trump should be disqualified from running for president. But no matter how you vote, whether you think the former president deserves this indictment or not, is the perception that this is a strategy to get Trump?
That's the perception among Republican voters, not the perception among Democratic voters.
You don't think the Democrats think this is all to get Trump? I mean, he's had much more controversial investigations than these documents for some people.
Oh, goodness, Adrienne, this is quite awkward. I would disagree with you there. No, I don't think that. I think, well, that's true. I think that if you or I did the behavior alleged by Mr. Trump in relation to alleged obstruction and alleged concealment, we'd go to prison.
Well, and again, the Republicans are always going to throw the Presidential Records Act out, and we'd have to do a whole lot longer interview to discuss that. But a lot of people don't want him running, and they have publicly said, lawmakers included, that they do not want him running for office, and by any means necessary, he should be stopped from that. Although he said he will run from prison. Let's look at some of the new polling. It asks voters, should Mr. Trump serve as president again if convicted in the classified documents case? Of course, 70% of Republicans say yes. 20% of Democrats say yes as well. 44% of independents say yes, he should run versus 56% who say no. Even if Mr. Trump is gaining strength among the GOP base, do you think that this indictment, do you think that people in the middle are starting to move away from him? Are we seeing that?
We're certainly seeing some suggestion of that in those figures that you just cited. And I think it is a really important point, Adrienne, because remember, there's a lot of concentration, of course, on how Mr. Trump's base feels about things. And that's a completely valid question. But his base isn't enough for his ultimate goal of winning the White House back. Let's not forget he lost the 2020 election in the popular vote by 7 million votes. So it's not enough just to hold the base. He needs to gain more people. And those polls, those findings that you just cited, would suggest it's moving in the opposite direction.
Mr. Trump's GOP rivals, if you call them that, because really he only has one, and that would be Governor Ron DeSantis. I don't think if you have 10%, we can categorize that as a rival, but we can debate that later. They're now faced with the dilemma of how to respond. So what do they say? What's the right answer for members of the Republican Party? Do they alienate all of those so-called voters who would rally with him? Or do they stand and be more like Chris Christie, who is the wrecking ball with 1% voter approval?
Yeah, I mean, as you say, Chris Christie is running really in a different way or for a different reason than most other candidates. He's running specifically as the anti-Trump candidate. But to concentrate on people like Governor DeSantis, who have real hopes of winning this nomination, I think they are trying to play a different game, arguing that this does, as they see it, represent the weaponization of the Justice Department. It is notable, I think, Adrienne, that they are focusing on that rather than the former president's conduct, as I say, specifically relating to the allegations of obstruction. And I think that's the way they're trying to thread the needle, by hitting at the Justice Department without actually giving a 100% defense of Mr. Trump's actions.
And we still don't know, again, what the details are in terms of whether this is going to set precedent for other presidents and vice presidents who also had classified records in their possession, though they're not as, maybe they don't have as much public clout as the former president or notice. Thank you so much, Niall Stanage. We appreciate it. Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.